It happened on a Monday morning. The dealership wasn't even open yet. The lights were still flickering on. Coffee hadn't finished brewing in the break room, but I was already being shown the door. My name is Lucas Tran. I'm 43, and for the last 17 years I helped build Tran Auto House in San Jose, California, the family business my father founded before I was born. I trained every salesperson that walked in. I shook the hands of every customer who came back some 3, even 4 generations deep. I was the one who stayed late, covered weekends, skipped holidays, and hit every single sales target for almost 2 decades. That Monday, all of it ended in 13 minutes. My younger brother, Ethan, 4 years my junior, sat behind what used to be our father's desk, though you'd hardly recognize it now. The old leather chair was gone. So were the framed fishing photos Dad loved. In their place, something sleek, cold, metallic, like a desk from a software startup, not a legacy dealership. "Your sales style is too soft, Lucas," Ethan said, not looking up. "We need performance, not relationships." He didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't offer a conversation. He just had Tuan from security, a man whose son I personally helped get his first used car last summer, collect my things, and hand me a cardboard box. "You'll get 2 months severance," Ethan added. "Professional courtesy." I didn't say anything, didn't yell, didn't argue. I simply took the box, nodded once, and walked out the glass doors past the sign that still said Tran Auto House. My name was still on the building, but it didn't belong to me anymore. Out in the parking lot, I placed the box on the hood of my truck and just stood there for a moment, letting the quiet settle. And that's when my phone buzzed. Mira, regional coordinator at Solaris Motors, our largest supplier, had sent a text, still good for our 2 p.m. meeting. I stared at the message for a second, then smiled. "Definitely," I replied. My schedule just opened up. What Ethan didn't know was that 3 days earlier I had signed a deal with Solaris Motors to become their new regional distributor for the Western Territory. Not as part of Tran Auto House, not as a brother, not as an employee, but as myself, alone. Pause for breath, lower tone slightly. You see, Dad built this place 37 years ago. 10 used cars, a dream, and a determination he passed down to both of us. When I joined straight out of college, I started at the bottom, washing cars, answering phones, even learning basic repairs. I didn't mind, that's how Dad did it. Ethan, on the other hand, went to business school. He came back talking about efficiency models, customer lifetime values, and transaction funnels. He didn't just want to modernize the dealership, he wanted to gut it, make it unrecognizable. To him, people weren't relationships, they were numbers. And Dad, he tried to stay neutral. Different styles work for different customers, he'd say, sitting between us at dinner. But I could see it, the tension, the way Ethan looked at the customer loyalty programs I built like they were charity. And then last Christmas, everything shifted. It was over dinner at Dad's house. He mentioned almost casually that he was thinking of retiring. He'd turned 65. His back was acting up. "I've been thinking," he said, slicing into his roast. "Ethan has some good ideas about modernizing." I didn't respond, but something inside me cracked, quietly. By February, the paperwork was done. Ethan would take over in June. I'd stay on as senior sales director. That was the agreement. That was the promise. And I believed it. I trusted my brother. But almost immediately, things changed. My office was moved. Smaller, darker. My access to supplier systems was restricted. My sales team reassigned without explanation. "We're streamlining communication," Ethan said with a polite, empty smile. The final break came 1 month ago when representatives from Solaris Motors, the same ones who relied on my relationships to move their vehicles, came to our dealership to discuss distribution changes. Ethan was in a meeting, so I took the meeting myself. That's when they offered me something I never expected. My own territory, my own operation. Direct control over vehicle allocations to all 19 dealerships in the region, including my own family's. I told them I needed time. And then, on a Friday afternoon, I overheard Ethan on a call in his office. He didn't know I was outside, didn't hear me coming. "We'll clean house once Dad's fully out," he said, laughing. "No more of that hold your hand nonsense Lucas does," He's too much like Dad. We'll modernize top to bottom. He called me obsolete, a liability. In that moment, I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel sad. I just knew this was it. That same afternoon, I signed the Solaris contract, scanned it, emailed it, and wrote, "I'm in." Monday afternoon, just hours after I walked out with a cardboard box in my hands, I stepped into something completely different. A modest office tucked inside the Solaris Motors regional branch on the edge of downtown San Jose. The floors weren't polished marble. The chairs weren't leather. But it was quiet, professional, clean. Mine. Jack Bennett, the regional VP, met me with a firm handshake and zero theatrics. "We've got a lot to walk through, Lucas," he said. I nodded. No time to dwell on emotion. I was already moving forward. That first day, he walked me through allocation logistics, regional priorities, and dealer profiles. Pinned on the wall beside my desk, a map of the Western Territory. 19 dealerships. And right at the center, in red Tran Auto House. The next few days were a blur. I didn't take time off, didn't sleep in, didn't mourn. I learned the Solaris system inside out. I called every dealer in my new territory. Introduced myself. Asked questions. Took notes. Most of them had no idea who I was. Some were skeptical. But by Thursday, things started to shift. That's when my phone rang again. Tran Auto House, main line. "Lucas, it's Valerie in accounting," she whispered. "Ethan's not doing well." My voice was calm. "What's going on?" "We can't get inventory confirmations. The system keeps flagging our orders for review." Ethan's furious. "He's trying to call Solaris, but I was always the point of contact. I finished for her." She hesitated. "He doesn't know it's you, does he?" "No, not yet." There was silence on the line. Then her voice softened. "Lucas, the sales team is panicking. The floor is almost empty." I exhaled slowly, leaning back in my chair. "I'm sorry to hear that, Valerie, but I don't work there anymore." Click. Pause. Tension rises. 2 hours later, Ethan called directly. I let it go to voicemail. "Lucas, I don't know what you did to the ordering system, but it's a mess. Nothing's going through. You need to fix this, now." No apology, no acknowledgement, just orders. I waited until Friday morning to call back. He picked up immediately. "Tran Auto House. Ethan speaking." "It's Lucas." Finally, he barked. "We need 22 vehicles by Tuesday. The system is blocking everything. The showroom is almost empty." My tone stayed even, professional. "Have you contacted your Solaris representative? They keep bouncing me around. Something about a new distributor process." "I don't have time for this. Just tell me what you did." "I didn't do anything to your account." "Then why did it all go wrong the minute you left?" His voice cracked a little, desperation slipping through. I let a moment of silence hang. "Maybe I said carefully you should find out who your new distributor is." "I'm trying," he shouted. "Nobody's giving me a name." Another pause. "It's me, Ethan." Silence. Then, "What?" "I'm the new regional distributor for Solaris Motors. I control allocation for every dealership in the Western Territory." He laughed, a bitter, nervous chuckle. "No, that's not possible. They can't just—" "They didn't just anything. They offered. I accepted." His voice hardened. "So what, you're holding my inventory hostage? That's illegal." "It's not illegal. It's business. And standard policy says all new owners go through review. You're doing this because I fired you. I'm doing this because it's my job now." His breathing was heavier now, less confident, more real. "So, what happens next?" "You'll get inventory when your account clears review. It's standard protocol. Takes 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Lucas, come on. We'll be out of cars in 6 days." "I know." He lowered his voice, tried a new tactic. "Look, I know things got out of hand. But this is family, man. Dad built this place for both of us. I remember. You don't have to do this. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing something for me." His voice dropped. "You son of a—" "I'll review your application personally," I cut in, "and I'll treat it like I would any other dealership. No favors, no shortcuts. Click. For a long time, I stared out my new office window. It should have felt good. Should have felt like justice, like revenge, like a win. But it didn't. It just felt heavy. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. Ethan. I didn't answer. Then it rang once more. Dad's number. I hesitated, then picked up. Lucas, Dad's voice was tense. What the hell is going on? Ethan called you. He says you're blocking inventory, that you're tanking the business. I swallowed hard. That's not what's happening. Then what is happening? I work for Solaris now. Ethan fired me. Said I was outdated. Too soft. Had security pack up my desk. Pause. He said, you left voluntarily, that you got a better offer and just walked. I have the paperwork, Dad. The severance letter, signed by him. There was a long silence. I imagined Dad on the porch of his cabin in British Columbia staring out at the lake trying to process this. And now what he finally asked. You punish him. Hold the business hostage. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm doing my job. And the dealership I built, you'll let it crumble. I never said that. But you're going to delay it. Let it suffer. I'm going to follow protocol, that's all. I'm flying home tomorrow, he said. You don't need to. I do, he interrupted. This isn't what I built. You and your brother need to fix this before it's too late. He hung up. And just like that, the past was knocking at my door again. Saturday morning. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dad's face, tight with disappointment, trying to make sense of what had happened between his sons. He was supposed to be fishing in British Columbia, not flying home to deal with the fallout. But Ethan had reached him, and, in true Ethan fashion, twisted the story before I had a chance to speak. By noon, I got a text from Dad. Meet me at Frankie's Diner, 1 Heru. Neutral ground, away from the office, away from Ethan. I arrived 10 minutes early. Dad was already there. He looked older than I remembered, grayer. Not just in hair, but in posture, in presence. We didn't start with pleasantries. You walked away, he asked, eyes sharp. No, I replied calmly. I was walked out. I reached into my folder and slid the severance letter across the table. Dad read it in silence. His jaw clenched. This doesn't sound like Ethan, he muttered. It is Ethan, I said. And it gets worse. I handed him another document, an internal quote from Nova Automotive, Solaris's biggest competitor. It was dated 2 months ago. What's this? Dad asked. Ethan's plan to drop Solaris. Cheaper inventory, faster shipping on paper, but lower quality, worse warranties, and garbage after-sales support. Dad's hand tightened around the paper. These dates. This was before I even signed over the business. He's been planning it for months, I said. The day he got full control, he was going to rip out everything you built and replace it with volume. Dad rubbed his temples. But why? Short-term numbers. Flash profits. Looks good to the banks, maybe even enough to sell it to a chain and cash out. Dad blinked. Sell Tran Auto House. That's the path he's on. I showed him the final page, 3 business valuation requests made in Ethan's name sent to national auto conglomerates. 3 months ago, I said, before he ever touched your desk. Dad sat back, breath slow and heavy. And now you work for Solaris, he said. They came to me, not the other way around. He stared at me for a long moment. Are you trying to destroy your brother? I shook my head. I'm trying to protect what you built. I reached into my bag and pulled out a separate folder, this one thicker. A proposal. Tran Auto House becomes a premium Solaris exclusive dealership, I explained. Top-tier models. Higher margins. Loyalty packages. All under the Tran name but built on trust, not transactions. Dad flipped through the pages. Where did you get all this data? I've been tracking it for years. The customers that brought us the highest return. They weren't the ones looking for bargains. They were the ones who trusted us. Came back year after year. Because we treated them like people. Dad was quiet. He won't accept this, he finally said. Ethan won't go for it. No, I agreed, but that's not the question. I looked him in the eye. You still own the property, Dad, the building, the lot. Ethan owns the business, but not the land. And that's when it clicked. Dad's expression changed. You want me to evict my own son? I want you to give him a choice, I said firmly. Follow your principles, or walk away. 2 days later, we sat in the conference room of the dealership. Dad, Ethan, me, and Martha, Dad's longtime attorney. No one spoke as she laid out 3 documents on the table. Her voice was calm, controlled. Option 1. She began sliding the first folder to Ethan. You retain ownership of Tryon Auto House under a revised lease agreement contingent on maintaining Solaris Motors as your exclusive supplier and operating within new dealership quality standards. Ethan didn't touch the folder. Option 2. She continued. You sell your ownership stake back to Robert and Lucas at fair market value, adjusted for the inventory disruption and current valuation projections. Ethan's eyes narrowed. This is extortion. No, I said, voice steady. It's a choice. Martha didn't blink. Option 3, she said, pushing the final folder forward. You retain the business but must vacate the property within 30 days. Your father will terminate the lease effective immediately. Ethan stood up pacing, arms crossed. You'd really do this to me, he asked Dad. Your own son. Dad looked at him. You fired your brother without warning. You lied about it. You plan to dismantle our reputation and sell everything I spent 37 years building. He let that hang. So yes, Dad said I would. Ethan turned to me. This is payback, he spat. No, I replied, keeping my tone level. This is preservation. He stared out the window. The lot was half empty now. The staff walked slowly, distracted. Customers were starting to ask questions. How much, he said finally. Fair market value, I answered. You'll walk away clean. Enough to start something new. Somewhere else. He shook his head, bitter. You planned all of this. No, I said. I reacted to what you forced. Martha handed him a pen. Ethan stared at it. Then, without another word, he picked it up and signed. No drama, no final speech, just ink and silence. He stood, walked out, never looked back. Dad didn't say anything at first, just sat there. Then, finally, he always talked a big game, but I never thought. I placed a hand on the folder between us. The new future. Not built on revenge, but renewal. We still have time, I said. Dad nodded, eyes clearer now. Let's get to work. 6 months later, the old sign came down. Not with fanfare, not with ceremony. Just 2 workers in overalls on a cloudy morning removing the rusted letters from the front of the building. Tryon Auto House. Gone. In its place, a new name shorter but heavier with meaning. Tran and Son. No legal fanfare, no viral rebranding video. Just a quiet statement. We're still here, and we remember where we came from. The weeks after Ethan walked away were long. There was paperwork, inventory audits, retraining, and countless conversations with customers and staff. Some employees had questions, others had doubts, but most were just relieved. The air shifted. You could feel it in the break room, in the service bay, in the tone of our receptionist's voice when she answered the phone. People weren't whispering anymore. They were working. Dad returned to the office part-time, not to run things, not to manage, just to be present. He greeted longtime customers, told stories, shook hands like the old days. Every now and then I'd catch him staring at the showroom, eyes glassy, but it wasn't sadness. It was recognition. He remembered the walls, the tile, the counters we installed together back in 2007. But now the colors were updated, the layout modernized, the lighting brighter. Still the same foundation. But we'd made it ours again. One afternoon, as we reviewed a shipment from Solaris, I got a knock on my office door. It was Jack Bennett, my old contact at Solaris, now technically my supervisor. Place looks good, Lucas, he said, stepping inside. Thanks, I nodded. We're getting there. Jack looked around. Customer traffic's up. By 27%, I said. Premium models are moving faster than we can stock them. He smiled. Told you relationships matter more than speed. I paused. No, I said gently. You said that, but it's what my dad believed first. Jack nodded thoughtful. You know, we got another call from your brother. I raised an eyebrow. Ethan. He wants to open another dealership in Phoenix. I said nothing. Jack continued. He's been asking about inventory options. But I'll be honest, his name doesn't carry weight anymore. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. I just said, it's his road to walk now. Jack nodded. Good answer. Later that day, I walked out to the lot. Dad was showing a young couple their first family SUV, a mid-size Solaris crossover top safety features reliable trim. He handed them his card, smiling like it was 1988 again. If anything comes up, I heard him say, you call me. Personal line. Anytime. The couple nodded, grateful. And I felt something settle in my chest. Not pride, not revenge. Something quieter, more grounded. Closure. Back in my office, I looked at the folders stacked on my desk. Finance reports, customer feedback, growth projections. But one folder stood out, the one I hadn't opened in months. Ethan's. The termination letter, the Nova quotes, the dealership sale paperwork, all of it. I didn't throw it away, didn't burn it. Just kept it. A reminder. Not of pain, but of process. A week later, I got a message from Vanessa, the accountant who'd stayed loyal through everything. It was short. One line. You need to hear this. Attached was a voicemail Ethan had left her by mistake, a message meant for someone else. His voice was tired. I thought I could do it, prove I was smarter than him, faster, more modern. But I didn't see what he had that I didn't. People followed him, trusted him. I thought loyalty was weakness. Guess I was wrong. I sat there listening to that message twice. Then I closed my laptop. Quiet pause. Deep breath. Later that evening, Dad and I were locking up. He stood beneath the new sign, rated again. Tran and Son. He didn't speak right away. Then softly he said, you know, I always hoped it would come to this. But I thought it'd be you and Ethan. I nodded slowly. So did I. He turned to me. I was wrong about him. I looked at him. You were wrong about me too. He smiled faintly. That I was. I thought your way was the soft way. I didn't respond, just waited. But turns out he continued your way was the strong one all along. He patted my shoulder. Let's head home. It was a Friday afternoon when he showed up. The dealership was closing in an hour. The last customer had just driven off in a compact Solaris hatchback, and the team was winding down music, low tools being cleaned, receipts counted. I was in my office when I heard the door chime. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 6 months. Is Lucas here? Vanessa popped her head in. Lucas, it's Ethan. I stood up slowly. The last time we were face to face, he was signing over the dealership, stone-faced, bitter, saying nothing. I walked out into the lobby. And there he was. Same sharp suit. But this time, it didn't fit the same. He looked thinner, tired, like someone who'd learned too many lessons the hard way. We stood there in silence. Then I spoke first. You came all this way. I'm in town for a few days, he said. Figured I should stop by. Not sure that's a good idea. I know, he said quickly, but I'm not here to cause trouble. He paused. I'm not even here to ask for anything. I raised an eyebrow. Then why? He looked around the lobby. This place still feels like home, he said quietly. Funny, I replied. Didn't feel that way when you fired me. He nodded, swallowing that. You had every reason to cut me out, he said. Block the inventory, destroy the business. But you didn't. I didn't respond. He looked me in the eye. I messed up, Lucas. I thought I knew better. Thought I could modernize everything and be the hero of the story. A short breath. But I didn't build relationships. I built shortcuts. And they don't last. Silence stretched. Then he asked, is Dad around? I shook my head. He left early, said you'd probably show up. Ethan smiled faintly. Still knows us too well. He hesitated. Would you tell him I stopped by? I studied him. Then nodded once. I will. He turned to leave. Stopped. Lucas. Yeah. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I don't expect anything, but I wanted you to see this. He handed it to me and walked out before I could open it. I unfolded it slowly. It was a letter. Not long, not dramatic, just honest. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you find peace in knowing you did the right thing, and maybe someday I'll be worthy of your respect again. That night I sat alone in the office. Everyone had gone home. The lights were dimmed. The dealership was silent. I looked around at the space we'd rebuilt not just with money or inventory, but with intention. Each corner carried a choice. The decision to stay. The decision to lead differently. The decision to not retaliate even when I had every reason to. I picked up the letter again. There was no asking, no manipulation. Just a man broken by his own ambition trying to put a few things right. And I thought of Dad. What he'd say. What he'd want us to be. The next day I drove out to the old fishing lake in Alameda where Dad went on weekends. He was standing on the dock rod and hand gaze locked on the water. I told you he'd come, he said, not turning. You did. He apologized. In his own way. Dad reeled in, looked at me. And you? I listened. He gave a small smile. That's something. We sat for a while in silence. Birds skimming across the surface. The occasional tug of line. The gentle lapping of water against wood. Then he spoke again. You know, when I built that dealership, I didn't do it to make money. Or to pass it down like a trophy. He looked at me. I built it because I believed in something. That if you treated people right, they'd come back. And they did. For 37 years. I nodded slowly. We've got a wait list again, I said, for the new Solaris line. Customers are calling in from all over. Dad raised an eyebrow. You taking care of them? Every single one. He nodded. Then you're doing it right. Back at the dealership the following Monday, a young man came in looking nervous. He was barely out of college, wore a wrinkled button-down and clutched a printed resume. I met him at the front. You here for the interview, I asked. He nodded. I heard this was the kind of place where people matter. I smiled. That's the rumor. I showed him to the office, asked about his story, his goals, why he wanted to work in auto sales. He didn't talk about quotas or bonuses. He talked about wanting to help people find something reliable, something that mattered. I hired him on the spot. That evening I walked out to the lot again. The sun was setting behind the hills, warm gold across the windshield rose. The building glowed in quiet confidence. Above it, the new sign gleamed. Tran and Son. Not a symbol of ego, but of survival, of family redefined, of hard lessons earned and remembered. And as I locked up for the night, I said it aloud, softly, only to myself. I didn't win. I just came home the right way. Final reflections, this wasn't a story about revenge. It was about redemption. About holding your ground without burning everything down. About choosing legacy over pride and clarity over chaos. Some wounds don't heal with apologies. Some don't need to. What matters is what we rebuild. And who we choose to become when no one's watching. That's what lasts. That's family by choice. Thank you for listening. If this story spoke to you, share it, reflect on it, and maybe call someone you haven't spoken to in a while. You never know what a quiet letter might repair. Until next time, stay grounded, stay human, and keep building something that matters.